As ashamed as I am to admit, I went through that rebellious teen phase in my youth. Whatever my parents asked of me, I wanted nothing more than to do the opposite. They were your typical hard-working cookie-cutter parents, and I was adamant on being the dark sheep of the herd. This applied to everything. Music-wise, they listened to oldies like the Beatles and the Rolling Stones. I steered towards music they didn't like, heavy music like Korn and Slipknot. They wanted me to do well in school. I dossed all day and always had my teachers having words with them about my behaviour. This carried over to my fervent obsession with body modification. They liked clean skin and heads devoid of metal. I wanted tattoos and piercings in every spot possible. I would ask every day for a small piercing here or a tattoo there, knowing that the only way it would be possible at my age is if I had their written consent, something they fervently denied every time, their reason being that it would be a slippery slope to getting more and more. As you can imagine, this denial only made me want it more. I spent a lot of my free time hanging out with other like-minded kids my age at the local skate park. As you can imagine, looking back, I was a walking cliché. It was there that someone approached my friends and I. He was a scruffy, but not homeless-looking man. The stoner look, if I had to label it. He was polite in his demeanour, but he wasn't too alienating to a bunch of adult-hating kids. He pitched something to us, and it was something that was music to our ears. He explained he was training to be a body piercer and wanted some volunteers to get some free work done. We obviously kept our composure, but I could tell we were all jumping in strides inside. He led us over to his makeshift workshop in his van. His tools were simple: a clean-looking piercing kit, which he thoroughly cleaned between each use, some cream, which he said was numbing, yet to me never felt like it worked, and a whole tray of these small studs, which all looked the same. They were very nondescript at a distance, and not much to look at up close. A simple, off-gold yellowish ball, which he pitched as something you could hide easily with their near skin tone shade. He also gave us very specific care instructions. He lectured us to never take them off for at least a week, and to wipe them gently with clean water each night. We attentively listened, a feat in itself in my eyes. After the first week, we were free to swap them out with whatever we wanted. The final instruction was to never tell anyone. Since he was after an official job, he didn't want to tarnish his reputation at the idea of back alley work. We agreed to all his words, feeling like we'd get in as much trouble with our parents, and he happily prepped for work. One by one, we lined up and told him what we wanted. Due to the excitement of the situation, a lot of people dropped their regard of getting caught and opted to go all out. My friend got his ears done and his nose. Another got snake bites on his lip and a few in each ear. Another got 3 on his left ear. Personally, my parents' lecturing had subtly sunk in, and when finally in the situation I dreamt of, I got cold feet. So I simply got my right ear done, and that's it. A light order compared to the rest. After we finished, the man thanked us for the experience and went on his way. We laughed afterwards at how he thanked us, like we were doing him a favour, when in reality, we felt like we got the most out of the situation. I had long hair at the time, so I just kept it over my right side when I went home, and relished that evening in the knowledge of my secret rebellion. That night, I secretly cared for my new joy as the man instructed, and made sure not to sleep on my right side that night. I rested easy that night, smug with the satisfaction of finally getting something I wanted. The next day, I'd almost forgotten to hide my secret in time before walking downstairs to eat breakfast. My parents figured out something was up, but they most likely chalked up my weird behavior to how I always was around them. Still, I used all my power to try convince them otherwise. Throughout the meal, I sometimes twitched a little, a tiny stinging pain occasionally flashing from my right ear. I covered well though, and they let me go on my way to school. All through school, I did nothing but show off my new metal. Some were in awe, others in response flashed their own matching yellow studs, which we subtly acknowledged in a kindred way, silently sharing our knowledge about the secret worker. To aid the secret, we worked hard to not be caught by the teachers. Sure, we could try lie and say we had our parents' permission, but no one wanted to risk it, especially since we revered this mysterious man which travelled through whispers. This carried on for the first few days, until it started hurting a little. One evening, even though I had done everything I was told, I struggled to sleep. Not just because of the slight stinging pain emanating from my right ear, but because of the strange sound I felt like it was making. They were infrequent at first, but each time a flare of pain came, it felt like a strange rubbing sound came every time I got a stinging sensation. I desperately wanted to tell my parents in panic, however, knew the repercussions would be severe. I chose to ignore it and hoped it was just a part of the healing process. The next day, everyone who had a piercing confided in each other about this strange feeling. Unanimously, we all suffered from the same symptoms. Some were even missing from school that day, absent under the pretense of feeling ill. We knew something was up, and handily accepted the suggestion that they were infected. We all Googled the best way to treat an infected piercing. The sites instructed us to not use anything heavy like alcohol or hydrogen peroxide, a relief as coming across chemicals like that would be near impossible in the middle of a school day. They told us to wash out the area with salt water and to not remove the piercing as the hole can close up. Something that echoed what the man told us when telling us to keep them in for a week. We all took up the routine and hoped that it would be the solution we were looking for. That night was restless. No matter what position I lay in, a painful itching sensation overtook my right ear. I would try resist all I could. However, no matter how hard I tried, I would find myself picking away at it with my fingernails. Occasionally, I'd look down at my hands after a small scratching session and see soft yellow crust dug under my fingernails, dripping pus sliding down my digits. Every time I agitated it, it'd feel like it carried on in motion, spinning in my ear, despite me no longer touching it. A disturbing twitching circulating from a part of me which I never knew could move. I composed myself for my final solution, a martyr act in order to rectify the situation. I made the decision to tell my parents. I approached them sheepishly, pride tucked like a tail between my legs. After a few I told you so's from them, they opted to take a look. However, upon a mere glance, panic washed over them, which they visibly wore on their faces. My dad rushed to grab our coats and car keys, and my mother stood by me, attempting to calm me down and my confusion. The pain intermittently came and went, and in my flustered state, it rose in frequency. My dad yelled at us that he was ready. However, at this, my ear suddenly exploded in red-hot pain. No longer did it come in waves. It was now a constant burning rush of hurt. I screamed, wordlessly displaying the feeling that I had. My mom grabbed me and tried to soothe me as my legs weakened, and my dad rushed in trying to see what was going on. Neither of them knew what to do. For a moment, they froze. And that was all it took. The pain suddenly exploded into a quick relief, like the feeling when warm water finally leaves your ears after a session of swimming. The soothing warm liquid ran down my neck, and a wash of calm came over me. However, this was not the case for my parents. My panic transferred to them. My mother flung back in fear, retching in a mix of wanting to scream, yet attempting with all her might to keep it in. And my dad grabbed the nearest object he could find and rushed at me. I froze in shock until he came a few inches to me and stopped. My dad then went into a stalker mode and slowly trotted around in search of something, which left me confused. I stuttered out my feelings, which at first they both ignored. When my dad stopped intently moving in defeat, my mother's shoulders slumped down and they were both back to normal. I repetitively asked them what happened, and finally they relented. Apparently, when I felt the relieving burst, my earlobe had in fact popped. However, from the piercing emerged a strange little bug which immediately ran to cover like an exposed cockroach. My mom tended to my ear, still preparing me for the hospital, and I took a quick chance to glance my ear in the mirror on the way out. The lower skin was almost completely gone. The doctors confirmed it was eaten away from the inside. From the gore my parents scooped up that was tested, no metal was found. What remained was mostly my DNA, mixed with what appeared to be the genetic makeup of an unknown insect's egg.